This week, we are starting our next unit of our first year seminar. And the topic of this week is all about the truth behind the college transition. And we're going to talk about normalizing the spectrum of new student experiences that it's possible to have. So with that being said, for those of you who may be joining the first year experience for the first time, my name is Marky Rhodes. I'm the Senior Associate Director in Undergraduate Admission, and this year I am now your primary instructor for the first year experience program. If you ever need anything or have questions, even if it's not first year experience related, feel free to email me. I'm always happy to help connect you with whoever you need to be connected to. So my email is right there on the screen. Just don't forget to put the 1 behind my email address because there's a different M. Rhodes at Illinois Tech that is not me. That being said, today's objectives. Number 1, as I said, we want to normalize the spectrum of experiences associated with the initial transition from high school to college. And knowing that some of you are transfer students that have opted to join the program, there is still a transitional element, right? From going to a community college or a different four-year institution to another four-year institution. So we're going to talk about that spectrum. And in addition, I have some students with me yet again today who are going to share their experiences at Illinois Tech and also provide some advice for mitigating and navigating some of the challenges, and also talking about some of the positives of that initial transition and how it can actually be empowering for you as a student. So that being said, this is what you can expect from today's seminar. The first thing that we're going to do is a quick opening reflection. Then we're going to talk about the college transition as a spectrum of experiences. We are then going to talk about the benefits and rewards associated with the college transition, the challenges associated with it, and then we'll talk about, as always, the upcoming events, any next steps, and your reflection journal opportunities. So let's start with the transition from high school to college, a spectrum of unique and individual experiences. So I want you to drop your answer in the chat. First question for you: what is one challenge that you've experienced in the first few weeks as a new student? One thing that kind of surprised you, something that maybe you've struggled with a little bit. Obviously keep your answers brief because you're dropping them in the chat, but I just kind of want you to see that I'm sure that you're probably not the only one who is struggling with some of those things. So I'm watching everything popping into the chat right now. Online learning, absolutely, my friends. That is such a challenge, I think, for most people. Time management, absolutely, friends. I hear you on that. Oh, I'm just giggling at some of these classes saying that they're rigorous and they make you want to cry. We certainly don't want anybody in tears, and we're going to be talking about how to deal with those things in the first year seminar, so make sure that you stay tuned. Meeting people, feeling lonely, oh my goodness. And I'm sure, my friends, that that is much more of an issue this year than ever, right? Because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But the thing that I really want to point out to you, my friends, is just like whenever we had the first year experience kickoff with Lisa Darren Grossman, and she talked about the connection cure. Look at these answers in the chat. You are not alone in this. In many ways, first year students are all going, through the same things at this time of the year. And so the trick is really to lean on each other, and not just to lean on each other, but also to lean on your upperclassmen, to lean on your mentors, and really, like I said, to lean on your resources. Friends, especially if you're struggling with time management, if you're struggling with the increased rigor in college, don't forget about the Academic Resource Center. I cannot sing the praises of that service enough. We have a lot of students who actually work in our office in undergraduate admissions who are also tutors in the ARC. And I can tell you firsthand from observing it that they are wonderful about working with students, and not only talking about content, but talking about things like time management, how to manage studying for your classes. Also, friends, we are going to have an academic unit coming up where we're going to be delving into more specifically some of those metacognitive skills that help you with really rigorous classes. So stay engaged in the first year experience. I promise you that all of these challenges that you're talking about right now are things that we will be addressing in the coming weeks. And my goal is to give you the resources, not just to survive these challenges, but to thrive in the midst of these challenges, because survival is the baseline. We don't just want you to survive, we want you to thrive. We want you to be successful. So that being said, my friends, in addition to this, let's also talk about what is one benefit or positive that you've experienced during your initial transition to Illinois Tech? Okay, so go ahead and drop it in the chat. What's something that has kind of surprised you, maybe a challenge that you were able to rise to and overcome, something that you've liked, any positive, any benefit that you want to drop into the chat? Go ahead. Independence, absolutely, I hear that, absolutely. Nice professors, that's really good to hear, really good to hear. More sleep than high school. I remember feeling that way myself in college because you weren't forced necessarily to have those early morning classes always, and that was a big perk. Stable schedules, working at your own pace, absolutely. I'm really happy to hear that a lot of you are having good experiences with your professors. That's wonderful. Freedom, that's a huge thing. I think that was one of my favorite parts of being a brand new college student. So thank you so much for your engagement and for dropping all of that into the chat. Great discussion, my friends. All right, let's pop forward. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the first year transition. And the thing that I want to point out to you is I think so often, you know, whenever we talk about college and about, you know, basically all of the experiences that can be had, I think that sometimes we make the mistake of presenting it as this insurmountable challenge. And that's not true. In reality, it's a spectrum of experiences, right? And that spectrum can range from highly positive to incredibly challenging. And the thing is, your experience on that spectrum is going to vary. Sometimes it's going to vary by the hour, sometimes it's going to vary by the day, by the week, by the month, and that is okay. That is the college experience. And the really interesting thing about college is sometimes those lows and those challenges actually make the successes and the positives even more empowering because it really shows you what you're made of as a student. And I think that you are all capable of being successful. It's just a matter of finding the right resources and the right strategies to ensure that you can be. And just remember that a lot of students, yes, are going to be able to identify with your experience. If you were looking through the chat just now, a lot of the same answers were given. But that being said, the takeaway is yes, you're not alone, but you should also avoid always comparing your own experience to others. Because as I said, it's a spectrum and you're all going to fall in different places on that spectrum at different times. And I think sometimes when we compare our own experience to others, especially if we are on that lower end of the spectrum at the moment, it can feel like we're doing something wrong, we're missing something, and that's just not the case. The reality of college is that there are going to be highs, there are going to be lows, and what matters is the way that you rise to those occasions, and that is what the first year experience is here to do, is to help you to do that. So just remember to always focus on charting your own unique path that's associated with your individual goals as a student and your desired experience. And that, my friends, if you always keep that in mind, is really kind of, I think, the central key to being successful. So moving forward, let's talk about the positive end of the spectrum first, those benefits of transitioning from high school to college or from another institution to college. I apologize, I'm moving things around on my screen so that I can see everything. So, of course, some of the benefits of transitioning from high school to college, the increased freedom is huge, the social, the academic, the personal, the freedom in your schedule to be able to design it the way that you want to. That increased autonomy and decision-making is wonderful and can feel incredibly empowering at the college level. You know, you're making your own important choices regarding your future, and for the first time, you're not necessarily being told what it is that you have to do. There's also a lot of self-discovery that's involved at the college level, right? This is a time for self-expression. I see a lot of students whose physical appearance changes drastically when they're in college because they're starting to explore different styles, different ways of wearing their hair, different things like that, which is just kind of, I think, one of the more fun things that you can do in college. But it's also a time for self-discovery in terms of pursuing your own unique interests and passions and really kind of creating the identity that you want for yourself in the religious and spiritual realm, if that speaks to you, maybe in the political realm and the academic, social, and then also the benefits of being in college are finding your tribe, your community, your people, which, believe me, my friends, I recognize is harder this year, but that's another reason that this program is here. And also finding your voice, figuring out who you are. So this is the positive, but also with all of this freedom, can sometimes feel overwhelming, right? And can sometimes feel like there are so many decisions that we're able to make that it can feel a bit taxing. But take it as an opportunity. Take it as an opportunity to really reinvent yourself, and to really figure out who you are as a person, that is aligned with your personal goals and your personal values. So that being said, I have a panelist with me today, Miss Katia Bertolt, and she has joined us before. And I actually asked her to join us today and to specifically talk about, her experiences and how her transition was actually especially positive when she started at Illinois Tech. So Katia, would you mind popping in and talking about your transition and just kind of what you feel made it positive and how maybe some of your own decisions and actions led to that positive experience?
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for having me here again. I know you've seen a lot of me over the past couple weeks, but basically today, since we're going to be going over a lot of the things to maybe be prepared for in a more concerning way, I really wanted to touch on the fact that whatever you hear today, it may or may not apply to you. I think for a lot of people, going to a new state or a new country even might be scary, but for others, it might be just exactly what you need at the time. And it might be the freedom and the excitement you're looking for. For me, coming to college was actually a very positive experience. I got more sleep than I did in high school. I actually felt like my academics were not easier, but way more manageable. I felt like I was in control of my academic experience more than I was in high school. And I ended up getting better grades in college than I did in high school as well. And I know that was the same for a lot of my friends. And I think the main thing that led to this being a positive experience was taking ownership of what I wanted and making sure that I was in control of the parts that I did have control over. So little things like using my Google Calendar from day one, not just for my classes, but actually for my homework time. When was I going to study? When was I going to go out? I really wanted to do both. And so I made sure that if I had everything planned out for the week, I wouldn't feel guilty about going out on a Friday night, even if I had an exam the next week, because I knew I had 3 hours blocked off the Saturday after to study for that exam. And vice versa. You don't feel bad for studying so much because you know that you're going to let yourself have a break at the end of the week and go out and go to downtown to kind of get your mind off of school. So scheduling was a huge one for me in finding that balance.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Katia. And I really like what you had to say about the fact that you really took ownership of those factors that you were in control of. I think that's such a huge piece of the college success puzzle. I've been singing this song since the beginning of the first year experience that you are not passive in your college experience. Sure, there are always external factors that you can't control, but so much of your decision making in terms of charting your own course academically, socially, and anything else in terms of student organizations and involvement is really up to you, and also the way that you rise to any challenges that are provided. And I think that your experience is a great example of that. So thank you so much for sharing. And I
And
certainly know
then
that, yeah, go ahead, Katya,
if
absolutely.
you wouldn't mind, just one more
Sure.
sentence I'd love to say is, today when we go through these different experiences, I think the best way I approached it is to be prepared but not scared. There are going to be times when you're stressed out, but that doesn't mean your life is over. That doesn't mean you're failing at college. So even if something does happen, don't think that it's the end of the world. And I think that's the best mentality that's helped me.
I would love to put that on a t-shirt. Be prepared, not scared. That's excellent. Thank you so much, Katya. I appreciate it. So let's talk about the more difficult side of the spectrum, those challenges that people might run into, of course. And remember that the challenges that you run into, a lot of people are going to share in those. So this is where you need to reach out to your community. And we are absolutely trying to provide as many tools for you as possible to find that community. We're actually going to be talking a little bit more about that at the end today. So delving into some of the challenges in that discussion, of course, there are different areas of challenges in transitioning from high school to college. There are just the general transitional issues. There are academic issues. There are relationship issues. So we're going to talk about all of these various categories and get some student input on their experiences with these. So let's start with some of those transitional challenges. There are a lot of very common struggles that students run into depending on their specific situation with college. Of course, homesickness, being away from family. I saw that dropped into the chat. That's totally valid. Sometimes it feels like you're leaving an entire support system behind, but it takes a while to develop your new support system. So there's this transitional period where you kind of feel like you're in limbo, like you haven't quite found your tribe yet, but you're detached from this previous network that you used to have. And that can feel like you're alone, absolutely. But just know that you are moving toward finding that tribe. There's also stress that's associated with that increased autonomy and freedom that we talked about in decision making. You know, questioning, did you make the right choice in the college that you chose? Did you make the right choice in your major? How are my decisions going to impact my future? That can cause a lot of stress for brand new college students. And those are probably questions that you're going to continue asking yourself at different times throughout your college experience. And it's totally normal to feel that way. Also, you know, kind of figuring out how independent versus how dependent do I really need to be? You know, some students are very willing immediately to always reach out for help and support, whereas other students might hesitate to seek that help or support, kind of like out of feeling like they're required to be more independent now that they are in college. But just know that there's never shame in reaching out for support. It's a behavior that is smart, that is associated with highly successful college students. I remember that when I was in college, I made it a point to kind of be all of my professors' best friend. And of course, I say that being facetious, but I was in their office hours. I was introducing myself. I had a relationship with them. And it's not that I was necessarily struggling, but I knew that I would at some point. And so I wanted that relationship to be there in advance so that when I started running into issues, I already had this relationship and that faculty member was right there on the ready to help me. In addition, physical health can be challenging when you go to college. You know, your sleep schedule is much more open to kind of your own decision making. So you have to be really disciplined about your sleep hygiene and making sure that you're getting night. You know, you suddenly are making food choices. You're not eating the same foods that you did at home. You're having to find time for exercise, even though you might feel like your course schedule is more rigorous than it was before. And sometimes it can be really hard to prioritize that self-care that you need. But just know that all of those decisions are going to impact your ability to study, to be successful, to feel happy, to have a good mood. And so that stuff is just as important to prioritize as your academics. In fact, I think it really adds to your academic success. And then mental health can be a struggle in college. And I think everybody struggles with mental health to at least a degree during their college experience. You know, sometimes we have this expectation of college. I think that especially in the United States, the college experience tends to be very romanticized. You know, and in reality, yes, it's an amazing time of self-discovery, but just like anything else in life that is worth having and worth pursuing, it certainly also comes with its challenges. And sometimes those challenges can feel like a bit of a smack in the face at first when you encounter them. But as Katya so articulately and beautifully said, the trick is to be prepared, but not scared. And to know that you are absolutely capable of not only meeting those challenges, but thriving in the face of those challenges. And it's just a matter of finding the right resources. Managing stress as well, missing your old routines, your structures, your support systems, all of these things are perfectly normal experiences. So specifically, I've got Mountie with me today, who's one of our first year mentors. And Mountie has an experience kind of dealing with homesickness specifically. So Mountie, would you briefly talk about your experience with homesickness and kind of what you did to get around that?
Hi, yeah, sure. Thank you for having me here. Yes, so I dealt with homesickness. Well, as being an international student, it's like being very, very far away from home. And then there are just experiences like weather is different. You'll find like scenarios where you just maybe sometimes the language is different, where you don't understand the lingo. And specifically for me, I miss like a family dinner setting where I think I enjoyed the whole situation where we would sit at a dining table and eat together and talk about how our day went. Usually, like last year, what I would do is I would make my entire friend group sit together in commons and eat together. Probably we're not all part of the same discussion, but we're all just sitting there and know that we all are here for each other, like out of our busy schedules. Um, Again, this is not really that possible, especially because of the pandemic. But there are ways to get around it where if you're going to eat, you can have a call going on where you're all eating lunch or dinner at the same time, but you're still like in your own respective rooms. So you know that you're there for each other, even though you're like probably in different rooms. Um, I also believe that you need to like talk to your parents, talk home if you miss home. So just like FaceTime or video call your parents or like check in on them and ask them how their day went. Most of the time, they're also going to be very interested in your day and how you're doing over here. So it's not like you're like all alone over here. They're there. They're their support system. They're going to help you out when you need it. And it'll really like help you out managing the homesickness once you're here.
Excellent. Mountie, thank you so much. And I think that there's a lot to be said for, just because you're in the middle of a pandemic, don't give up on your social connections. If you are anything like me, I am sick to death of Zoom at this point, and it's totally okay to feel that way. I am very much that person that is physically affectionate with others. I'm a hugger, and not being able to do that is really hard for me as a person. But I know that interacting with others, even though Zoom is not my preferred platform for doing it, is important for my mental health. And so I just kind of try to push through that to the best of my ability. I have lunch dates with my friends at work where we do exactly what Mountie said, where we're talking to each other on the screen, kind of as we're munching on our lunch. And it's amazing how I just feel my mood elevate after I get those connections. And like I said, if you're looking for your tribe, search in your small discussion group that you've got with your mentors, seek out student organizations where you have the opportunity to meet others, get involved in some of the kinds of events that we're pushing through the first year experience. We're going to try to put plenty of platforms in front of you to make those connections so that you can find your tribe in spite of the situation that we're in. Monty, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So let's talk about some of the academic challenges. Academic challenges can be endless at the college level. Like I said, anything worth pursuing is challenging typically in life. So you might experience that increase in rigor. I saw a lot of people saying that they're crying after their classes. My friends, I remember feeling that way as a college student. Oh my goodness, I'm having flashbacks to it, just watching your answers in the chat. I think all college students feel that way at some point or another in their careers. There may be an increase in your course load over what you had in high school, depending on how many credit hours you're taking. You might experience your first low test grade ever in your life at the college level. I know when I was in high school, I never got an F, and I got my first F my first semester of college, and it just about killed me. I remember I had a straight up panic attack whenever I saw that low grade. You might see a drop in your GPA. You might have been that incredibly successful high school student, and then maybe your GPA your first semester isn't what you thought it was going to be. You might question your major. You might have to kind of have this transitional period where you're learning each professor's unique teaching and grading style. Because they do tend to vary a lot more than they do at the high school level. Sometimes it can just be a challenge to develop your routine and your study habits given your new schedule and your new way of life. And then on top of that, we also have imposter syndrome. That is a huge issue, which I've got more information on that coming here in the next slides. So that being said, before we start talking about imposter syndrome, let's hear from Christian Gudmundsson. He is a biomedical engineering student, and it is no secret that biomedical engineering is probably one of the most rigorous majors we have on campus. But that being said, remember, we're being prepared, not scared. And Christian is going to talk about some of his experiences and some of the reality checks that he had in his first year of school. So Christian, feel free to jump in when you're ready, my friend.
Yeah, hey Marky. Definitely coming from high school where I was definitely more of a successful student in high school and then transitioning into college. It was definitely a hard transition. And I remember specifically one course that I was just totally unprepared for. And we got to the first exam. I got, I think it was a 33% or something. And I remember seeing that grade and my heart just sank. It was something that I was just totally not used to, and it was something that I was not expecting at all. So there are a couple of things that came out of that though that I feel like were super beneficial. One of them was immediately after seeing that, I went to my professor and got help. And that was definitely a good experience because that also was just very positive in terms of they were able to help me through like my biggest challenge so far. And it encouraged me to seek help in the future whenever I had something that I didn't totally understand or if I didn't do as well as I wanted to on an exam. Um, Additionally, with regards to that, it's just there's this whole stigma around like seeking help, or people feel like if they go to their professor is going to look down on them. It's entirely the opposite. Actually, a lot of the professors that I've connected with on a more personal level and actually ended up learning better from were professors that had courses that I struggled with at first, um, especially in BME. I questioned my major. I think it was last year. Um, I was going through some of my courses, and they were just getting increasingly more difficult. I was spending more time. I was getting more stressed. And I was like, "Is this really worth it? Like, why did I pick this versus something else?" And my experience was just sticking through it was going to be the best option for me. And I'm quite happy that I ended up sticking it out because it is definitely something I do want to do and I want to pursue. But there are these moments of stress where even when you're questioning things, you just power through and you can do well from there, no matter what you decide to do. Um, and I know I'm taking a little bit of time, but the last thing I'm going to say is in one of my design courses, and even in our lecture today, it's something that our professor has repeated a lot. A key concept is fail early and fail often. And that's because it doesn't matter if you fail, it only matters that you're trying and you'll eventually get to that point where you succeed.
Christian, thank you so much. That was worth the time, my friend. Absolutely. So my friends, that is wonderful advice. You know, there is a stigma around failure. There is a stigma around seeking help. And the bottom line is there should not be. And the only way to get rid of that stigma is to normalize it. And that is why we're talking about it right now. And so I hope that, you know, you're hearing this recurring theme of students saying, I've been there, I feel you, but listen to their advice. You know, they've been in your shoes. You know, seek help, seek support, be in your professor's office hours, form those relationships. And have I mentioned the Academic Resource Center yet? Definitely go see the tutors and the ARC, my friends. Establish a relationship with the ARC early. It is going to be one of the most powerful resources that you can consult in your undergraduate career. So Christian, thank you so much for your insight, my friend. That was awesome. So let's talk a little bit more about imposter syndrome. And I could probably do an entire webinar on nothing but imposter syndrome. This is quite a topic. If you identify with any of these things, Google it, do some research on it. I'm sure many of you have already heard of this before. So first of all, what is imposter syndrome? It's the persistent inability to believe that your success is deserved or has been achieved as a result of your effort or skills. And imposter syndrome is a spectrum, right? There are times that you are going to feel this way. There are times that you aren't. So it's not necessarily that it's always a pervasive, constant thing. For some people it is, it just depends. So if you've ever felt anything similar to this, I'm a fraud, I don't deserve to be here, everybody else is so much smarter than I am at this university, I feel like I'm faking my way through it, or I just got lucky. Those are all thoughts that are associated with imposter syndrome. So some of the symptoms you can see here on the screen, you know, worrying that you're going to fail to live up to expectations, having anxiety around that, avoiding extra meaningful responsibilities out of worry that they're going to compromise your performance in other areas, having self-doubt or a lack of self-confidence. This is a big one, attributing your success to outside factors. Like, for example, if you get an A on an exam and you kind of think about it like, oh, well, I must have just gotten lucky, you know, or the professor must have just asked the right questions that I happen to know. I know that I felt that way a lot as a college student and used to say that to myself. Negative self-talk, sometimes even self-sabotage, you know, kind of feeling like, well, if I just expect that I'm going to fail and then I behave in a way that sets me up for failure, at least I won't be disappointed when I fail. If you've ever felt this way, you know, you could be dealing with some feelings associated with this, and that would be something to speak with your mentor about. That's something that we can help you with. You know, I will say that there is some research out there where a lot of people believe that it disproportionately affects certain groups, such as women or underrepresented groups. So, you know, just be on the lookout. This is just something to be aware of. And this is something that we absolutely have support for here at the university. So I have Deeksha Ranganani with me here today, and she's going to talk a little bit about kind of her own experiences dealing with imposter syndrome, and kind of, you know, how she navigated going through those challenges. So Deeksha, feel free to jump in when you're ready.
Hi, Marky. Hi, everyone. I'm really glad I get to talk about this. I think it's something that everyone goes through, whether they're college students or whether they're middle-aged office workers or whether they're 80 years old. I think it's something that's constantly just in flux. Sometimes you feel it, sometimes you don't, like Marky said. I've experienced imposter syndrome about countless numbers of things throughout college and before as well, but I think one of the biggest experiences I had with it was probably during my freshman year. I initially chose Illinois Tech as admitted into a BSDO joint program that we have here, which is early acceptance to medical school. Like other students, I did bad on my first exam, and I started to question if I deserved to take up a spot in my program. And those questions kind of escalated to comparing myself with others and asking myself questions like, am I doing enough research? Am I involved in enough? Should I be skipping lunch to study more? Am I putting in enough hours? And also, what if IIT made the wrong choice when they picked me for this program? What if someone else deserved it more? What if I'm standing in their way? At one point at the end of freshman year, I even almost transferred out of IIT because I was so anxious to the point of being like physically ill when I was getting grades back about not being a good enough student to meet the requirements of that program. I filled out all of the forms. I ended up changing my mind the day before I had to submit my decision because I didn't want to leave behind any regrets or what ifs about not having tried my hardest or finding out whether I was good enough or not. I knew that that would kind of like haunt over me. I was eventually able to overcome the feeling of imposter syndrome, mostly by getting to know all of the other students who were also in the program. It was either through their encouragement of like, oh my God, yeah, this is hard, like, but we'll study together, or their vulnerability in telling me that they also felt like an imposter. They also felt like they weren't good enough for med school. And through that, I was kind of able to find enjoyment in challenging myself alongside them and the mental strength to believe that I could succeed with those goals. And imposter syndrome is something that I still deal with, whether that's me thinking that I shouldn't have the job that I have or thinking that I shouldn't have a position that I have, that someone else might deserve it more. But I think the key is to let it not affect you too much and remember that people picked you for a position or a role because they saw that potential in you or they thought that you could do it. And also remember that all the real limits that you have on yourselves are kind of the ones that you're setting for yourself. As long as you're trying your hardest, you'll always surprise yourself positively.
So beautifully said, Deeksha. Thank you so much. And my friends, I think that if you start talking to your peers, I think you're going to be amazed at how many people have felt this before in some way. In fact, drop it in the chat. Tell me if you identify with this. It doesn't mean that you have imposter syndrome. Just tell me if you identify with this. Just say, yeah, I feel that. Drop it in the chat. Go ahead. And let's watch how many people say, yeah, I feel this on a deep level. And the chat's exploding. So friends, you are not alone. You have a community who can support you through this, okay? So that's the take-home message from today. We're here to help you. Reach out to your mentors, reach out to your peers. All right. That being said, and feel free to keep going, but I'm going to go ahead and for time's sake move on. Also, relationship challenges as a new student. So we talked a little bit about leaving behind your previous group of friends, family, or your support system, challenges of interacting with people from diverse cultures and backgrounds, challenges of living with a roommate for the first time can be hard sometimes. Don't forget that if you are running into roommate issues and you're having trouble solving those on your own, your RA is a great person to chat with about that and finding your tribe. So, you know, if you are feeling any of these relationship issues, it's totally normal. Once again, the main thing is just to seek support. And I think we've talked about all of the different ways that you can do that at this point. So in terms of having some questions for discussion, I do want to have a very quick just kind of wrap up. Mentors that were with me today, do you have any final words of advice? And this is going to have to be super, super quick for your peers in terms of, you know, if they're struggling with any of these things, you know, what are some words of wisdom for them for moving forward?
I'll go first. I think my one thing is struggling is totally normal. Expect to struggle. Everyone will. And it's a good thing because those are the moments that you're really challenging yourself and growing. And you'll look back on them and be really happy that when you did experience times of struggle that you put in the work necessary to work through it.
Awesome. Any other panelists want to jump in before we wrap up?
I'll say in general, what's happened in the past doesn't matter as much as what you do moving forward. It doesn't matter if you failed a test that's in the past, you can't change it. Just move forward, learn from it, do your best from then on.
Awesome. Anyone else want to jump in and offer a final word of advice? All right, that's perfectly fine. I think we've already had a wonderful discussion about this. So friends, I'm going to breeze through this because I know we're over time at this point, but I want to go ahead and go through your upcoming events. First of all, we have some recreational sports and fitness opportunities that are going to be available at Illinois Tech. I think a lot of people assume we're not doing that due to COVID-19, but luckily those opportunities are still available. And if you're like me, you've been eating way too much and sitting way too much during this pandemic, and I am ready to move my body. So that being said, I'm going to show you some opportunities here on the next slide. And I'm also going to show you that we're going to be having a first year experience supplemental webinar series to help you learn a little bit more about some of the different types of resources that we have on campus. Also, don't forget that if you would like to submit your reflection journal for this week, I will have the prompt up here in just a second. And don't forget to subscribe to the First Year Experience YouTube channel. All of the previous seminars are up and ready to go at this point. I do apologize for the lag in the last couple of weeks. I will from now on try to make sure that I have the video uploaded at least the day after the seminar at the very latest. More information, we do have recreational sports leagues and tournaments that are open for registration, as well as fitness classes that started this Monday. So that being said, I emailed this information to all of the first year mentors. If you're interested in getting involved in some of these things, just reach out to your mentor and ask for the information, and you can register at the links in the email that I sent to the mentors. If you have questions, Courtney Budd is the facilitator. Her email is cbud@iit.edu. So if you want to get involved, you're also welcome to just email her directly and she can let you know how to get registered. We are, of course, adhering to all of the COVID requirements set by the university. So if you have safety concerns about participating, of course, we are making sure to take all of those things into account so that it's a safe experience for all. Also, we have a supplemental webinar series that's going to be starting the week of September 28th. The Student Health and Wellness Center will be with us on September 30th. The Academic Resource Center will be with us on October 7th. I highly recommend attending that one so you can learn more in depth about all the services that they provide. If you're interested in learning about campus life and student activities, there's going to be a webinar about that on October 14th. And then Study Abroad as well will be joining us in November. So I will have this up each week to remind you of these dates. And I believe that we are going to have the entire first year class just auto-registered for these so that you'll get reminders and you can pop in if you want. These are optional, but they're just there in the event that you want to learn more about any of these kinds of opportunities. Also, if you have a desire to do the reflection journal for this week, here it is for you. What are some of the benefits you've experienced in your initial transition to college? What are some of the challenges you've encountered? Have you ever struggled with any feelings associated with imposter syndrome? And if so, why do you think that is? And then what do you need to do moving forward to continue adjusting to your college life? So if you are interested in this reflection journal, go ahead and take advantage, submit it by next week on Tuesday. And of course, your mentors will write back to you. And also, Samya, would you pop in very quickly and chat about the FYE Discord that we have as yet another opportunity for you to connect with your university community and find your tribe?
All right, hey guys, I'm actually going to put the Discord in the chat, so that's the invite link. And this is just going to be a little bit like a platform for all of the incoming freshmen. All of the mentors are also on there, so you can like talk to people within your group, outside of your group. There are some rules for this Discord. Please don't post anything that might be offensive to anyone or anything that's in any way inappropriate. If you do go on the Discord and find something that is inappropriate, please let one of the mentors know, and we will take the steps to get rid of it. But yeah, have fun.
Great, thank you so much. And friends, I know that I had to move quickly through some of these slides. Like I said, this video is going to be up on the YouTube channel, but if you need these slides, you can also get them directly through your mentors. So just email them, ask for the presentation, and they can share it with you. That's not a problem at all. I have no issue with this being shared. And Game of Hawks, friends, we have an official reward for the end of the fall semester. So the winning team is actually going to be in charge of designing the official Game of Hawks trophy in the idea shop. There's going to be a special place of honor on campus where this is going to be displayed. So this is just one incentive that you're going to be working toward for earning the most Game of Hawks points, and there will be more information coming about further incentives. And join us next week on the 22nd, my friends. Career coach Tiara de Guzman will be joining us to discuss the results of the strengths quest that you took and how to apply those results in your academic and professional life. So don't miss that on the 22nd from 12:50 to 1:20. And don't forget, my friends, if you have questions, if you need the slides from today, if you need any of the registration links and weren't able to get them, email me. I'm happy to get those to you. My email address is mrhodes1@iit.edu, and I am happy to connect you with anything that I had to breeze through today just a little bit too quickly. So email me and let me know. I'm happy to help you out. And that's it, my friends. I hope you are having a fantastic week. I hope that if anything that you learned today is that you're not alone. We are here to help you. And you, my friends, are really in charge of your college experience. And so we're going to talk more about these issues in the coming weeks. But I hope today, at least, you got a little bit of information just showing you that your community is absolutely here for you. So have a fantastic week. We'll see you next Tuesday. Don't forget to attend your small discussion group this week. Bye, everybody.
And then anyone who is here for the 1:30 p.m. admission information session or the 1:30 campus tour, we'll be closing this group down. Sorry you ran over with our session a little bit before. But if you just want to leave this and then maybe come back in maybe like a minute, this session will be finished and we can start your tour. Sorry about that.